I'm just going to do a little talk now on induction, because this is something, in fact, when I looked at the due dates of a lot of you, it's coming on to Christmas. And there might be added pressure around induction when it comes to babies getting closer. And look, in respect for the carers, it's very tricky around Christmas with scheduling and things like that. So I'm going to encourage you to just be aware of that when it comes to the management of your pregnancy and also making those decisions around your birth. Now, some of the latest stats that have come out, which I've just written about recently on Facebook, if you've been there, is that the induction rates for first-time parents have gone up to almost 50%, which is really wrong on so many levels. Okay, so we're over-inducing now, and we're doing it, and people are agreeing to it without realizing that there are implications to inducing and how it changes the labour. So this was one of the questions that was asked for tonight. How does induction change labours? Well, a couple of things. One, you're bringing babies on that may or may not be ready to be born, and you're asking your body to go into a state that it might not be ready for, okay? Now, the closer to ripeness, and by ripeness I mean the cervix getting soft and starting to separate and showing signs of readiness, that's often a sign that, labour's not too far away. And the closer we have inductions to that time, they tend to be more successful. And I'm not even sure I can quote stats around this, but just from a common sense point of view, is that there's less work to do to get the body into gear. Okay, so if you're inducing, I'll give you an example. 95% of babies are born between 37 and 42 weeks. Okay, so what that says is that it takes roughly 37 to 42 weeks to grow a baby to be ready for life outside the womb. Now, some of us grow babies quicker, or some babies grow quicker, and some take longer to develop. So if you're inducing at 38 weeks, you could be bringing that baby on 4 weeks early. But we don't really know, do we? And so that baby's transition into the world then changes as well. So they might need more support once they're born because they've been brought on a little bit earlier. Having said that, though, what causes labour to start? Sometimes when babies don't come down because of their positioning or things on the cervix, it means they can be cooking a lot longer. Okay, so it's not always about whether the baby's cooked and ready to come. It's also about their position, how they're sitting on the cervix, and whether they're putting enough pressure on that doorway to start to stimulate oxytocin release and then labour. Now, we don't technically know what triggers labour, whether it's the mother's body or the baby. I think it's a dance between the two. The baby putting pressure, growing bigger and putting pressure on the cervix tends to bring on labour. And mothers' bodies, I think, have an intelligence to them that suggests that they kind of know when it's time to, spit out a baby getting too big. But of course, these are the mysterious forces that we can't necessarily understand or read at the time when it comes to making good decisions. So if you're being offered to be induced, you ask those questions. These are the questions that I gave to partners. What are the risks? What are the benefits? Are there any alternatives? What would happen if we waited? What would happen if we didn't do it for now, or you chose not to at all? Or what else might she need if we do this? Remember, those questions are really good questions to help you to really read the situation and get the answers you need to make good decisions with the support of your carers. So, there's issues with the baby. There's issues with the mother's body when it comes to induction. Is the mother's body ready to release that baby? If not, then she's going to be artificially ripened. Sometimes women's bodies have issues and reactions to the gel, or reactions to the syntocinon, which causes the uterus to stimulate quite quickly. Sometimes it can make the uterus stimulate very, very quickly and go into distress, and then the baby goes into distress. And then you might need support through a cesarean. So there's a whole lot of things that can happen with induction. Now, it's important you know that stuff, because we tend to say, oh, you've got a risk of, I don't know, advanced maternal age, so we're going to induce you at 38 weeks, okay? But then they don't talk about the risks of induction. So it's important you balance out both sides of the coin. But having said that, though, I think the reality is a lot of mothers feel very nervous around those last few days, weeks of, you know, oh, I don't want anything to happen to my baby. We're better to bring it on earlier rather than later. And there can be that fear that starts to play through. So it's a very, very tricky time, okay? But with good questioning, with good information, you can generally make the right call for you. But this is between you and your carers to kind of manage. Okay, now, it's helpful if induction seems to be in your scope and we've only really got one more catch-up group between now and next year, and most of you will have had your babies by now. I might just go through and talk about, if you do face induction, what to negotiate and how to manage it, okay? Because, pardon me, induction can work really well if it mimics a normal labour. So I'm going to shoot a few things out. It's probably useful to have a piece of paper, and if you hear things that you want to take notes, it's probably going to be really useful for you to do that. If you're in the village, you will get this recording in the village, because I haven't actually recorded myself talking about induction, so that'll be useful. All right, induction. Now, on an emotional level, a couple of the things that I say to women who are facing induction and are choosing to go ahead with it is, when you make the decision, it's really important you step fully into that decision, okay? And you say, this is what we're doing, and we're good with this, and we're going to make the most of it. And it's going to be a great day, and you step fully into the decision. So as you walk in, you know, you greet your caregivers and you go, these are the people that are going to help me bring my baby on. When you receive the cervical ripening process, whatever that ends up being for you, there's a couple of different options. Whatever comes into your body, you welcome it in. You say, come on in, help me soften my cervix. This is going to be a great day. Can't wait to meet my baby. Can you see the difference? You're doing it with a positive, powerful mindset. If you end up having your waters broken, you breathe, you tell your baby, darling, your bag of waters are about to be broken. That's going to bring you down on my cervix. I can't wait to feel you on my cervix. And you have a really good, powerful, positive mindset around it. If you end up going that third level with the syntocinon, which is given to you through a cannula, where you get synthetic oxytocin, which is designed to work with your uterus to contract your uterus, you say, welcome into my body. Come and help my uterus birth this baby calmly, gently, lovingly, under all circumstances. Keep affirming your vision, how you're approaching it. Choose love over fear and step fully into that decision. Can you see the power of doing that? Now, in order to get you ready for it, one of the things I suggest to my parents who are facing induction, on the night before, get a couple of wine glasses with a bit of sparkling apple juice, light a candle, and either write, journal, or talk about your greatest hopes and fears, okay? And when I get people to write, I actually often say it's a good idea to write a letter to your baby expressing your greatest hopes and fears. Now, what do you think that does? It touches you very deeply. It starts to connect in with that emotional part of you that's holding on, holding on. You might have to have a cry. You might have to, I didn't want to do it this way. I really wanted to go into spontaneous labour, but we're doing it because we want you to be safe, and we're choosing to do this, and we're choosing to feel great about it, but I just need you to know, blah, 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 and you just let it all pour out of you. What that does, that emotional release, is brings you into a much greater state of readiness. I call it the fuck it moment, where you just go, fuck it, I'm ready for anything, okay? So it's that letter writing or talking about it or expressing your greatest hopes and fears, tuning into your baby, telling your baby what you're doing, what you're choosing to do and what you're worried about, all of that helps you to release on that emotional level so that you can be ready to walk into that doorway, choosing it, embracing it, and choosing love over fear. Okay, so that said, now let's talk about the process. The first thing they're going to do is some type of, let's get your cervix ready for this job. It could be a gel, a tape, it could be a balloon that opens it up, depending on the state of your cervix. They make that call by checking your level of ripeness. Okay. Once they've done that, they typically do that at night. You do your best to get some sleep. Then they might break your waters. Now, the breaking of the waters brings the baby down more heavily onto the cervix. Now, those two, or even the first one sometimes, but 1 and 2 might be enough for you to kick into labour. If you're getting contractions, particularly if they're nice and strong, you don't have to necessarily go for the syntocinon, which is the third step, straight away. You can just see what these contractions do and enjoy them and distract yourselves. Take in a movie, play board games, don't sit around making yourselves tired. Do really nice things, joyful things that make you laugh and things like that. So you can say to your carers, when you go in to have your induction, let them know that you are hoping to do this without any extra need for fuss. In other words, you're hoping to avoid pain relief or pain management. Now, you know it's an option, you let them know, but we're hoping to do it without any extra need for fuss, and we'd really like your support in making that happen. So with those first 2 steps alone, you might go into labour, and that's a great kind of mimicking of normal labour, and that could be enough to get your baby born, which is a wonderful outcome. But if you do go for the third part of it, now partners, I want you to pay attention to this, because you're going to have to be her voice. If she does end up with the syntocinon, it's really important that every woman has a different level of ripeness, a different response to that because of her metabolic response to the synthetic oxytocin. If it mimics a normal labour, that's a really great thing. If it goes too strong, too quick, just tell them to back it off. Okay, so no, it's too strong, just back it off. We just want it to be increased gradually over time. And a good midwife actually does that, but they're not all paying attention to it. And if you let them know that you're hoping to avoid an epidural, then that's the best way to do it, so it doesn't put you into too strong a labour too quickly. So partners being able to communicate what she's feeding back to you about her experience is going to be really important for them to back it off a little bit. Okay. Now, if it is too strong, if your body's really responding strongly and it gets too much for you, an epidural can be really appropriate with inductions. Okay, so don't, feel bad if you need to have an epidural. It might be really appropriate for you because you've got synthetic oxytocin, which can make labour very, very strong and hard for the mother, depending on how it's administered and how her body responds. So partners, that's a really important point for you to take on. Okay, and then all of your other tools, your endorphins, everything's going to work beautifully, just working with the contractions and seeing it as a positive thing, stepping fully into it, knowing you can get support if you need to. And the other one is to negotiate the ability to move. Now, that's really important with either the Bluetooth monitor or the scalp monitor. You don't want to be stuck on the bed, but with inductions, they do have to monitor you pretty much continuously just to make sure that your baby's responding okay to the process, because it can put babies in distress as well, depending on, how things are unfolding in the mum's body. Okay, lots of talking from Trace tonight. How's that? Are there any questions about that? No? We all good? Priscilla and Hugh, any questions? Because I think that was your question, Priscilla.
Yeah, that was mine. I think you'd mentioned it at the workshop, and I didn't really know what the process was, but that's really useful what you've taken us through. I think you've answered everything. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. Let them know your intention, how you're approaching it. You're hoping to avoid an epidural, and we do really love your support in making that happen, because midwives can often help you to find comfort and other ways of managing the intensity. But I've seen lots of women get through with inductions with very little fuss, and it's been great, you know. So don't think because you're being induced that it's the worst thing in the world. Embrace the decision, negotiate what you need for support, and enjoy it. Enjoy the day. It's your baby's birthing day or days. Okay. All right. I'm just going to stop.